So without further ado, just wanted to introduce our speaker today. We have Dee Scarano with us, and she's been a freelance consultant and been working in UX design, product strategy, innovation coaching for over 12 years. She's facilitated strategy workshops and collaborated trainings for companies such as Google, Twitter, Lufthansa, and many more. But I'm really excited to have Dee here today because if you're just starting off in your career or you've been in design for a long time, career growth is something that we all think about. Should we change our companies? How much am I worth? Do I work for myself? These are all questions you've probably asked yourself. But there's a hard part is that there's no right answer. So how do we decide what factors to gauge in making these choices? And that's why we have Dee with us today. She's going to kind of talk about her own experiences and then also talk about maybe some frameworks or tools that we can use for ourselves. So without further ado, I'm just going to stop sharing and give it over to Dee.
Yay, thanks, Hannah. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. And hello to everyone. Welcome. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic. What I'm going to be sharing today is actually really personal, my personal journey and my personal choices, trade-offs, decisions, mistakes that I made and what I learned and how I decided after that, all these kinds of things. So I hope that you find it useful. So I don't have all the answers in the whole world for what everyone should do with their career, but I'm going to really share a lot of personal detail of decisions that I made in my career so far. And there's been a lot of moves and shifts and ups and downs. So I really think and hope that it will be useful for a lot of people. So I should be sharing my screen right now. Hannah, jump in and tell me if it's not working, but that should be working. So yeah, welcome to Designing Career Growth. Just really quickly, a little bit about me in pictures. At the moment now, so yeah, as Hannah said, I've been working for about 12 years. Maybe it's 13 even now. Who knows the time morphing that's going on at the moment. I think it's probably 13. That I've worked as a UX designer, product designer, service designer, product strategist, and now really with the pictures that you see on the screen here, me doing kind of what I do today, which is running workshops and designing workshops for collaboration and innovation, and also running business innovation strategies and product innovation and collaboration workshops to help people engage, especially now that we're doing a lot of remote work and things online, helping business leaders or teams make better decisions or test ideas more rapidly and more successfully, things like that. So, but during this talk, you're going to hear a bit of the journey of really where I started and all the things I did on the way to doing this. And actually, I'd love to know, here's what I'm going to talk about. So my career journey so far, I'm going to go through the pieces and the kinds of things that I did and bad decisions and good decisions and learnings, critical choices, trade-offs and mistakes and fuck-ups and why they're so important, how I recovered from a real career crisis, character strengths and values, which I'm going to go into more detail about exactly what I mean by that. And then how I use those, understanding my character strengths and my personal and professional values to design the career that I have today, which I love and I'm really happy with. So I hope that feels interesting and relevant to all of you. And what I'd love to know, Hannah, if you can, and in the YouTube live stream as well, I'd love to know from everyone who's watching, if you can get in the chat and type something. Out of these things, what's the most interesting for you? Which one is like, oh my God, I can't wait to hear that story. I want to hear about that career crisis, or I want to hear about how Dee made critical choices and trade-offs in her job history, her career decisions. So if you can open the chat now and type something and maybe give it a minute, Hannah, and then jump in, just interrupt me and like read out a couple. I'd love to know.
We have a lot of career crisis. We have some of the fuck-ups, recovering from career crisis, fuck-ups. We have some freelance choices, career transitions. Yeah, I would say the majority is crisis and recovery and fuck-ups.
Yeah, okay. It's a world of crisis at the moment, so that's not surprising at all. But that's really great. Thanks for jumping in and reading out, because that'll help me really focus on what people find interesting. And Hannah, maybe you can also just jump in if people mention something or ask questions that are kind of guiding this into a particular direction, like people really want to hear more about, please jump in and just and let me know, because I can't see the different screens at the moment.
I got it. I'll let you know.
Perfect. So first, a really quick just overview of my career journey, like basically the jobs that I had and the moves that I made, and then I'm going to come back and then cover the choices in those moves and the mistakes and the learnings and all of those things. So to get started, it was 2008 when I finished studying, and I did go to university, but I'm also a strong believer that actually university isn't necessary today, and maybe a lot of other people are. Tell me if you feel differently. But I did a university grade. I didn't study design or anything, well, maybe slightly related. I studied IT and computing. And then my first job, or my first internship really, was I was an intern in a big, pretty traditional, boring old company, and in the big IT department in there. So I was just really excited at the time to get an internship. But looking back later, I was like, yeah, this was not so exciting for a first job. Then this next job is actually the same company hired me after the 1 year internship. So it's kind of the same company, but I was hired as a proper junior product designer. And that's where I actually made a shift from that internship. Was in the IT department, and I had studied IT and computing. And then I got this IT internship, and then I saw all the different teams and the way that they worked and interacted. And there was really the back-end admin teams really creating the like databases and things like that for computer systems. And I saw the project managers, and I was on the help desk, the customer support desk for a while. And then I got to see the design team as well. And I was like, ooh, that, even though I've just done this degree, I think I like that. It's solving people's problems and understanding real needs and things like that. So I kind of was attracted to design, and I said, could I go into that team? And they ended up hiring me as a junior product designer, which is really lucky that I found that early on, that I really loved that. Then the next job I moved to, and I'm going to come back and go in a bit more detail about these as well, but the next job I moved to was also product designer, but I went up to mid-level. It was another company that I moved to after 3 years in that first one. Then this is where I moved to Berlin. So you maybe can tell from my accent potentially that I'm from Australia. And I moved to Berlin almost 8 years ago, which is where Hannah and Jeff are from as well. So in the same city here. But I needed to find another job, and I took a job as a service designer, different title for a very similar thing. And I actually they only hired me as a junior. So these emojis at the top are kind of telling you my the state that I was in at the time. So studying, little baby chickadee intern. The first real job when they hired me, I was like, what's going on here? Juggling things around, trying to figure out what I was doing. Then when I was hired as I'm a proper designer now, I'm not a junior anymore. I was like, right, I've made it now. My career is just going to go all the way up from here. But then when I moved and I needed to find another job, I found a job at a company. I did a good interview, and then they offered me a junior position. So I was a bit of a reality check of like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not hot shit. Maybe I'm not the best designer in the world. And I went kind of back down to a junior. So there was a bit of a learning there, or a bit of a reality check there. Then I'm skipping really fast through because we'll go back over in more detail. But the next job I took was a UX as a UX designer, and then I moved up to senior. So that was a really nice step. And this is where already I think almost 10 years have gone by. And then the next job after that in a different company, which I'll tell you about, was a product strategist and also a senior. And so now another 2.5 years in that job. And that's when I finally, just over a year ago, decided to go freelance. So I don't think this is like after 12 years of working in companies going freelance. And my point there is definitely not that you have to wait that long to go freelance at all, but I was kind of scared to go freelance and wasn't sure if I could do things on my own. And I kind of regret that decision actually, because probably 5 years earlier I could have at least tried doing freelance work and seeing if it worked out. And being scared still after 12 years and saying, I don't know if I can do freelance. I really wish that I had just tried it out earlier, because it's a pretty low risk thing to try. You try it out, and if it's not really working in a few months, you can try and get a job. So I'm going to go back over that timeline now and talk about some of the most critical choices and trade-offs that I made during those times. So looking back at that again, that first job that I was talking about was in this big organization, really traditional, with departments and managers, and maybe every company has departments and managers, but really hierarchical, really kind of slow processes for everything, and really old processes that no one could be bothered fixing and changing and making faster and better. And it was 5,000 person organization, so it was really clunky, old, slow organization. Then that next job, where I was actually like, cool, I'm mid-level now, I'm a real designer, was also a corporate, a big, not so big actually, 200 people, but still with that corporate way of thinking. And that's when I had the first time in my career where I actually thought, how do I feel about this? What do I want? Do I want to keep working in a corporate? Do I want to work in corporate like companies all my life? And this feeling, this sense of this, like, is this working for me? Is the first time where I thought maybe I should make some choices about my career and how it goes from here. So I had this thought, maybe I don't want to work in corporates. It's old, it's slow. I feel like I can't make changes because everyone's like, no, that's the way we do things here. So that actually led me to, this is the point actually when I moved countries and moved from Australia to Germany, to Berlin. And I had this thought, I really don't want to work for a big corporation anymore. And so when I moved to Berlin, I actually, I didn't know anyone, but before I moved, I would tell people I'm moving to Berlin, and they would tell me, oh, I know someone who moved there, or one of our other colleagues moved there. And I really just did a lot of grabbing of like, oh, could you send a Facebook message and connect me with that person? And I won't ask for anything from them, but just to like maybe buy them a beer when I arrive, because I don't know anyone, and we don't have to be best friends forever, but just they could tell me a bit about the city and help me get a feel of things. So I did that with a few people, and then all of those connections that I just started to make and doing some Googling and searching led me to, and with this in the back of my mind, I don't want to work for a corporate. It just helped me filter out all these big companies. In Germany, there's all these car companies, BMW, Volkswagen, all these other things, and also a lot of engineering companies and big German businesses, media companies as well, newspaper companies, they still exist. And I just blocked them out. Just like, I'm not going to waste my time looking there, because I know I don't want to work in a corporate again. I've been 4 years in big corporate organizations now. So I got this job at this really cool, kind of thoughtful, thought-provoking, creative agency. It was still 200-person agency, so it was a bit big. And I also took a pay cut, which was a tough decision for me at the time, because I thought, oh, aren't we supposed to value what we do and not take less than what we're worth? And I was like, weighing this up. But I decided to do it because it just felt like a really good fit, really fast, dynamic, casual also, as in not super businessy, but really casual feel about it, doing creative work. And I felt like I could really learn a lot there. So I just took the pay cut and was like, I hope this is a good idea. And then after that, I'm going to tell you more about that one as well. I worked there for 3 years, and it was a great company to work for. But then I started to be involved in Berlin and in the city, and go to meetups and things and learn more in my field as a designer. And as this startup crossed my path, people that worked there kind of crossed my path, and I heard that they were hiring, and I'd had 3 years in this company. And I had this thought, like, I've always worked for bigger companies, big, medium to big companies, 5,000 people, 200 people, 200 people. And I was like, I think I'm missing out on something here. This experience of working in a startup that's maybe trying things and breaking things and learning from their mistakes and doing things really rapidly, way more rapidly than this agency I just worked in, who was working still doing projects for bigger corporations, but doing creative things still. It's like, I think I want this startup experience. And so I ended up, through my kind of connections that I'd made, moving to this startup, which was much smaller, 30 people at the time that I joined, whenever that was, 5 years ago or more. Only 30 people. And then from there, I realized, yes, that was the first small company I worked in. I realized, yes, I like small companies. And also in that company, as a UX designer now, was the first time, or kind of the first-ish time, that I was a senior now, and I was actually leading things and using workshops to solve problems and co-create and collaborate with people together. So I realized I like small companies and I like workshops, and I was making these realizations along the way. I don't like this, I do like this. I think I'll search for here and leave those things out of my field of view because I know I don't want them. And ended up getting this job at another cool small agency. I haven't mentioned any names yet. If in the chat, if anyone's really interested in the names of these companies, please do ask and Hannah can jump in. But I kind of want to talk about them without mentioning the name just so I can talk really freely. But so I realized I like small companies. Then this transition was actually part of the career crisis, which I'm going to talk about. I moved jobs and realized now, okay, startups are cool, small companies are cool, but startups are really draining. Maybe I'll go back to an agency. That's where I really learned a lot and got a variety of projects, but I wanted to stay in a small company. So I went to this agency that was just 20 people. I actually took a pay cut here as well because I really wanted to work there, and also the career crisis had played an effect on that too. But then all this time I was learning things along the way that were helping me make better and better choices about my career as I went on. So by the time I got to thinking, I think I should just really try this freelance thing, I really knew what I wanted. And there's this big message that I want to get across here, at least about my journey, is that realizing that I didn't want to do work in that kind of company, or realizing that I was really interested in this kind of thing, or found like a certain style of organization or way of working really creative and motivating, helped me consciously choose what I wanted. So in this case, it was consciously choosing a variety of experiences. I've worked as a product designer already, so now I want to try this service design thing. Now I want to try this UX design thing. Now I want to try a small company. Now I want to try doing strategy work. So all of these kind of listening to my feelings and what I cared about really helped me to consciously make this choice, and which for me was a variety of experiences, sometimes taking a pay cut. And that's maybe a luxurious position to be in. I'm sure that not everyone has the luxury of thinking a pay cut is doable, especially families with kids and things like this. But for me, and it will be different for everyone, just understanding what the levers are and what's important to you, which I'm going to show exactly how I did that later through the talk. I think that's the key message, is listening and then understanding what you can make conscious choices about. So another little pass over this, I'll go quickly over as well, is if we look at that my same timeline, my same journey, and looking at some mistakes and what I really learned from them, is that this job, this product designer job, where I actually went up to mid-level and I was like, yeah, this is cool. They were paying me a lot better than I had in this first junior role. I had kind of realized, but thought it wasn't that important, that I took a contract with no paid vacation time. Any vacation time had to be unpaid. But I was like, they're paying me more money. I'll be fine. I'm rolling. I'm making bank now, which was not true. And that was a big mistake, which I didn't realize at the time that was going to be so crucial, but it made me change my decisions. And when friends said, hey, come on vacation with us, I would have to say, oh no, I've got this bill coming up. I can't afford it, because if I take vacation, I won't get paid. And it really changed how I made choices about my life. So huge learning there, which I then didn't make that mistake ever again. And then in the next job, where I decided to actually take the pay cut, that's when I moved to Berlin, took a pay cut, but realized that it really changed the whole trajectory of my career, because of this. It was this cool creative agency. I was working with a bunch of really skilled, really diverse people with different skill sets, doing different kinds of projects for different kinds of companies. And that was really, and even though I had a pay cut and I went back to being a junior, that was really definitely a fantastic decision. Then and by the way, write your questions in the chat, and if there's something super relevant, Hannah can ask it now, but also we can bring things up in the Q&A at the end. I'm pretty happy to answer personal things if you have questions about that. But yeah, so in the next job, the next move was where the thing that happened was that I wanted to make this move. This is where I transitioned from agency and bigger companies to wanting to work in a startup. And the startup then couldn't afford the salary that I was now like, okay, I'm going to make sure I get what I'm like worth now. I've got a few more years under my belt. And I couldn't afford the salary. So I had the thought to ask for a 4-day week, which worked out really well because they're like, oh, actually, yeah, we can do that. And a big learning that I actually got from that was realizing how much of an impact that having that extra day a week of breathing time and time to just not think about work or not have really busy social life on the weekend, how much breathing room and how much really relaxation and less stress that gave me. And that's something I took into future career decisions as well, especially when I went freelance, realizing how important it is to me to have dedicated space in my life. And then in the next job, I made another pretty big mistake that maybe everyone makes at least once in their career, is that when I moved to that job, they asked for my salary expectations. Maybe everyone has a story like this or has a friend that has a story like this. They asked my salary expectations and I just gave them a minimum and a max. Like, this is what I think I'm worth, but I also gave them a minimum. And that minimum was the same as I was getting paid in my previous job. Because like, this is the minimum I would take. I won't go down. And this is what I expect. This is my range like that I'm hoping for. And then they offered me the job, but they offered me the minimum that I had put. So I probably could have just put more, and then they probably would have given me whatever that higher minimum was. So that was a bit of a rookie mistake after so many years already working. But then I really learned from that. And I was in that job for 2.5 years. And then in that same job, I negotiated a higher salary, and then I negotiated other things as well. Like when I started doing overtime because of big projects and doing some traveling for work, then instead of being paid the overtime, I actually negotiated. I negotiated, there was a bit more money involved, but also I negotiated kind of half extra money and half time off so I could rest after this overtime, all these big projects and overtime work. So I started to realize and learning from these just decisions, mistakes, and learnings that I could choose, or at least be aware and think about how I felt about when something happened and what I wanted to happen in an ideal world, and just negotiate and ask for it and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I'm not so happy at the moment. Can I negotiate? Can we talk about what I can get? Can I get some time off? And it actually started coming to me. So by the time I actually transitioned to freelance, which some people were saying that they're interested in this transition to freelance, I finally knew what I wanted and knew how I wanted to build my career, which I'm going to show you a little bit exactly how I did that. So yeah, the big message here, as I was kind of thinking through this, it's really nice giving a talk about something because it really helps you actually think through really exactly what you did and why you did it. The big message, I think, for me and maybe for you is that I made some really useful fuck ups. There were some mistakes that I can look back on and say, that was dumb, but I'm really glad. There's no mistake in there that I'm not glad that happened, because it's led me to basically design the career that I wanted for myself today. And the kind of secret of making these useful fuck ups is that there really isn't a secret. I didn't know which things were going to be fuck ups. I didn't know which things were going to be mistakes. I didn't know which things were going to turn out badly or well, and until afterwards. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you don't know whether something's going to work out or not. It's making that choice and then seeing whether it's a fuck up or not, seeing whether it's a mistake, and then knowing that you have the choice to change it. Maybe not with every single thing, but at some point in your life, you'll have the choice to say, I'm not going to let that happen again, or I'm going to choose something different next time. So I just say a little bit about why fuck ups are so important, but maybe if y'all are designers, I actually don't know how many people. That's a really nice question, and maybe Hannah, you can jump in after I ask people to tell me. I'd love to know how many people in the audience from both the YouTube live stream and the Airmeet meetup. Are you actually a working designer? Because I think that's the audience of this event. But I'm sure there are lots of other people joining who want to be designers, or maybe doing something adjacent to design, or maybe just joining from a completely different career. So I'd love to hear, are you a designer, and how long have you been working if you are a designer? So if you're like brand new or junior or senior or 5 years or something like that. So if you can open the chat And right, I'd love to hear that as we go through the rest of the talk as well. But yeah, I want to say a little bit about why fuck ups are so important. And if you are a designer, you might be familiar, or in the tech world at least, with fuck up culture. What's the other word for it? Basically, failing fast, like failure culture. Failure is really an important thing in design, in tech, in a lot of industries, but it's also really important for life and for people and for careers.
Yeah,
So,
Dee, just
yeah,
interrupt you for a moment.
please.
Yeah, so we do have a wide range. A lot of people who are maybe in other types of designs. We have some graphic designers and other designers who are looking to transition into UX design specifically.
Cool.
People, junior designers. We also have some senior designers who've been in the field for 13 years. So chief designer, 20 years. Student, just 1 month.
Huge range. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
so we got a nice mix.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. That helps. I like to know. Yeah, it really helps to be able to talk about what might be relevant. But actually, there's such a broad range of people here, which is really cool. And yeah, thanks for everyone for opening the chat and yeah, this is really nice, interactive two-way information. So yeah, for everyone and for designers, especially with this knowledge of failure culture, fuck up culture, with design and with other things, but for everyone in life, I feel like fuck ups are so important because obviously there's this fail fast and learn that maybe if you haven't heard, this is a kind of almost a mantra in the design tech world, especially in the startup world actually. Fail fast, learn fast. But I maybe would like to rephrase that as make a choice and see what happens. And it doesn't have to be this, oh, I fucked up or I failed, but just the word fuck up is a bit catchy, so I'm using it. But make a choice and just see what happens. And I feel like that's essential for anything, to progress and learn and grow faster than you would if you didn't make that choice. And often we look back at our choices and think, oh, I'm stupid me, I shouldn't have made that choice. But I really love having the attitude of glad I made that choice, so I know now to change, to not to do that, or glad I made that choice so that, oh, I wouldn't have this experience that I have today. So something might feel like a fuck up, but the learnings are always, in my experience, always useful later. So I try to have the attitude that I want to see what happens rather than worry that I'll be stuck in a choice. And there's another factor to this that I feel like, which I'm going to talk a bit more about as well, that if you kind of preempt this choice with how do I make this choice where I won't feel stuck after it, or I won't feel too stuck, I'll be able to fix my trajectory or agenda or path at some point, then it's a lot easier to make those choices because you know you won't be too stuck if you go down that rabbit hole. And there's a great TED talk that I just watched recently, and I thought of as I was making this particular slide about this information. That's from Brené Brown. If anyone hasn't heard of Brené Brown, please Google her. It's B-R-E-N-E, Brené Brown. And this talk in particular, this TED talk, Listening to Shame, really she's a shame researcher, which led her to be a vulnerability expert, and especially vulnerability with making decisions and sharing what you are feeling and understanding what you're thinking and feeling and using that to help you make choices. And she talks in this talk about courageously accepting that failure will happen and just doing stuff anyway and seeing what happens and learning from it. So it's a really great talk. Maybe Hannah's sharing that link now in the chat. So Hannah, by the way, how much time do I have left? I've just realized I might be almost, do we have like, 5 more minutes or something?
Yeah, I would say let's do like 5-7 more minutes if you can wrap it up, but just so we can leave some time for questions too.
And we've got questions. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Cool. So recovering from a career crisis, this is something that people were interested in. So what happened, my career crisis was, which maybe I'd also love to hear in the chat, maybe you don't want to say actually if something like this has happened to you, because I feel like once people know it happens to so many people, it's a lot less. It's like, oh, good, someone else went through this as well. Not good that they went through it, but it's like I'm not the only one. At this point in my journey where I was in this 200-person agency, which is this really cool creative agency and really nice company to work for, and stay a really stable job and paid me well. And I left to join this interesting startup because I was like, I think I need to get into see get the startup experience and get that skill set under my belt. I left this nice job to join this startup that had popped into my radar. And not long after that, they as startups do, they had to let go half the company. So I was one of the people who was let go along with many others. And I lost this job that I'd given up. I'd given up another job to come here. So in one afternoon, suddenly I just didn't have a job. Literally, we went home and we're like, oh, I better take the plant on my desk because I'm not coming back tomorrow. So if you want to share that, if you feel comfortable sharing it, I'd love if you want to put in the chat, like, this happened to me too, because it does make somehow people feel a bit better. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that as well. But these things happen and no one sees it coming. And to be honest, that was a big part of my learning as well, not work for startups, but to just be ready, to take the risks. And I've got great experience. I worked at this company for I think maybe just over 1 year when that happened. So I got great experience on the way. And it was the first time I went up to a senior position as well, which was also maybe one of the reasons I was let go, because I was the more expensive person. Maybe I just like to tell myself that. But I got great experience of this crazy startup life and all these risks that are taken and really fast decisions, and then the consequences and the effects of those, which this crisis was actually one of them, this personal crisis. But I got so much learning from that. And now I actually coach startups in innovation processes and strategic things. And it's invaluable that I had the experience of working in a startup and seeing how things work and seeing where mistakes are made or where risks are taken that are unnecessary and things like that. So I also have this link to share with you. I think Hannah's got it as well to put in the chat. That's just a nice article that I found on this subject, but specifically about startups. But my point here is really I'm talking about the career crisis, and I'll tell you what I did with it next. But this article is nice that says why everyone should experience startup life at least once. So if you're interested in that, or you've always been too nervous to work in a startup, or you hate the startup that you work in, maybe this article will help you to see maybe the things that you're gaining that will help you later in your career. So about my career crisis and what actually saved me, how I recovered from this career crisis, there's a little bit of, luckily I'd done things already before, and then a little bit of what I just knuckled down or pushed through and did in that one day to the next not having a job. So the things that saved me were that I had already built a good network, and I'd started being generous and helpful within that network. So things like asking when I'd meet people that were design managers or people higher up than me, senior designers, asking how I could help them. Were they running an event that I could help with? Were they running an event they need speakers for, even though at some points I was just a little junior, but I wanted to practice giving talks and getting less scared. I was actually a terrified speaker in my early career, and I wanted to get better at it. And then I started co-organizing and running my own events as well, and running events for other people to help them. But these things, actually networking or just talking to people and making friends in some way, professional friends, and being helpful and generous and asking how I could help others, I later realized that it's one of my character strengths. Character strengths is an official term, or I think a psychology term, that you can understand what the strengths of your own character are, the natural kind of strengths or your natural tendencies or beliefs or values, and things that you're good at. And you can learn what they are. And I realized later that I had used these things that were part of my top character strengths to build a resilient base, base for my career, so that when this crisis happened, I had something, I could do something. I was like, I didn't know at the time that these are my character strengths and I'm going to use them and this is what I'm going to do. But later I realized that is what I did and how valuable that was. And now I can use this same thing again. So what I actually did when this crisis happened, and one afternoon I didn't have a job, I had this good network and people that I'd already helped out with the different things. And I sent out just a handful, maybe I think it was 4, 5, 6 personal emails to people that I knew, especially if they were a bit higher level, like a senior designer in another company or someone who was managing a design team or someone that I knew was running a startup, and sent out personal emails and just said, hey, this thing happened. Like this, startup just like had to let go of half their people. And I was one of them. Any chance your company's hiring? Like really just straightforward. And because I'd built those good relationships and already given something and offered something, it really didn't feel like I was asking desperately for a favor because we had this great relationship. So I sent out these personal emails. I set up lunch chats, just said, hey, I'm unemployed now. I'd love to come to your office, bring you lunch, buy you lunch, take you out for a beer after work, whatever you'd like to do. If you're not stressed out and if if there's anything you think you can do to help, if your company's hiring or anything like that. I sent out a few of these emails, set up a few of these chats. And there were a few companies that hit. One was this big traditional corporate. It was a car company. And I knew someone who was a senior designer there. And I had a lunch chat with them, but I was really like, no more corporates. So that helped me really angle my efforts more to this other company that was a smaller startup agency that I then pushed for. And then I interned, I volunteered a week of my time for free to just say, hey, you've got this project coming up next week. I know you probably don't have time to interview me or do this stuff. How about I just come and work for a week for you for free? Because I think I'm good at the things that you're doing in this project. I can run workshops, I can do this. Maybe you need me and I'd love to show you how I work, and the no strings attached. And that turned into getting a job at that company. So within 3 weeks of oh my gosh, I don't have a job, I had a job again. And I again want to mention that I'm fully aware that this is a privileged position, that I knew someone who worked in this company, and that I had this network, but I don't want this information, this slide right here, to come across as you have to be good at networking or you have to be generous and always offer your services to people for free. Not at all. Actually, I don't believe that you should need to do those things, but those things were true to my character strengths, which I realized actually only later. So this networking helpfulness were really, when I actually analyzed and understood my character strengths, which is coming now next, helped me use my strengths to my advantage to help myself in this situation. So what saved me was really being aware of these strengths I had, thinking, oh my gosh, this situation is put in front of me. How can I use my strengths to my advantage? And how can I do something quickly? How can I try something out and just see if it works? Send a few emails, see if I get a reply. Meet people for lunch, see if they give me anything back. If that doesn't work, it's only even a day or two. I can still go apply for jobs online. So then I want to say a little bit about character strengths. And I'm going to go through this really fast because I think we're running really out of time. I'm sorry, Hannah.
Yeah, it's okay.
There's this great assessment, this like survey. Yeah. This 15 minutes to do an online survey. And this was really referred to me by a psychologist. So I don't personally refer, I'm saying I haven't checked every single character strengths assessment online, but it was referred to me by someone who has. So I think it's a really good one. And this is a really quick look at my own results of that assessment. And the key point here is that if you look at the things on that screen, you can see their kindness, social intelligence is down there at the bottom. And there's this list, and everyone who does this assessment has all these same things on their list. It's just the order of them that's important. So it's the top strengths that you can really do this assessment and look at and think, oh yeah, I am really good at that. I am really hopeful. I am really great at teamwork. Whatever else is on your top list, you can think, when a situation presents where you don't know what to do, or you're in a crisis or stressed out about something, just being aware to say, what are my strengths again? How can I use them? Can really give you kind of strength and hope. I guess that's why they're called strengths. To help you figure out what to do. Use the things that you're already strong at, already good at, already drive you and motivate you and you love, to help you make the decisions and the actions that will help you in your life and your career. And it's not important to look at the bottom of the list, or at least not important to try and fix the things that are at the bottom of the list, because that's not what it's for. You don't need to fix the things at the bottom of the list. You just need to use the things at the top. They're not things you should work on. So this really, I think, one of the biggest learnings that I've had in professional life and career is that learning about my strengths as a person, these character strengths, and give me really resilience, because when a curveball comes my way, when something happens I'm not expecting or I don't know what to do, I can lean on them. I can go back and lean on them and feel resilient, like I will be able to get myself out of this situation. So resilience and the comfort to try things out and experiment and see what happens, and shoot out a few emails and see, rather than investing too much time in something else. The resilience and the comfort to experiment and try things really leads for me to career confidence. And it doesn't mean that I know I'm the best designer in the world or feel, it's not really about me feeling like I'm the best designer I can be, but it's me feeling confident that no matter what happens with the world, with my career, with my job, with my startup, if it's going to let me go, no matter what happens, I feel confident that I can take myself forward in my career. Oh, these are really points that I'm so sad that I'm running out of time for, but maybe, should I go just super quickly through them, Hannah?
Well,
these last three things, and then it's, yeah.
Yeah, I do want to leave some time for questions. I mean, just maybe one or two questions. And I see one of the questions in here is, could you share your presentation materials? So I'm not sure if you be open to sending those out to people.
Yes, totally.
So I think maybe this will help you kind of, I think this is perfect, because the top voted question is, would you kindly share some tips from switching from full-time to starting freelance?
Great. Well, cool. Thanks, Hannah. Yeah. Top voted question. Awesome. So this is exactly the right point. I guess I'd put them in this order. So I'm going to go so fast through this. I jumped to freelancing with a bit of luck, because I do want to acknowledge that I worked in a company that did online media stuff like videos, and maybe people know it, AJ and Smart. And I luckily got some kind of online presence from that. So that was helpful. I just want to acknowledge that was there. But then I made a lot of conscious choices when I jumped to freelancing. I figured out my values. I used them to think about what I wanted my freelance career to be like, and it's really use them to design how I did freelancing, and then also use this, like, let's just try something and see what happens. And I think this is a really important point for going into freelance. I see people spending months building their websites, spending ages building their offering and designing all the services that they're going to offer, and creating their portfolio, and spending 3 months getting started, and then something doesn't work out. No one wants their services, or they're targeting the wrong market. And so I think let's try this quickly and see if anyone's interested, and see if people will hire me. Trying it quickly is really a huge tip. Let me know if you have questions about that. But so these things all helped me, what kind of work I wanted to do, the ways I wanted to work, how often, how much, and also the pricing I charged, which usually people have lots of questions about how to price your freelance services. So I've popped that in there, and I hope that feels relevant. So I think this can be really quick. How I design what I do and what I don't do with these character strengths and personal values, which I'm going to have this quick last slide of how I figured out my values and how I base these decisions on my values. But on my webpage, which I built in one afternoon, it was very like, let's try this and see what happens. I'm only going to spend an afternoon on a Squarespace template. But I put the words in there that were the things that I wanted to do, not the things that I had always done, but what I wanted to do. So some people, I know there's at least a few people here that know that I did design sprints before, and I got really good at design sprints. And for those that don't know, it's a design process. Workshop collaboration process for design, and I got really good at them. But I was kind of like, I want to do something different. I want some different experiences. I want to have variety in my career. So on my webpage and on my LinkedIn, I put other things on there. I kind of didn't highlight the design sprint thing, and I wrote down just the stuff that I really wanted to work in. And didn't highlight the design sprint thing, because I was like, I know I'm going to do more design sprints. I know that will happen, but I'd like to try and get some other different types of work as well. So I was really consciously thinking not what will people pay me for, probably design sprints, but let's just have a little guess and see, there's this extra tip, and see if I can manage to make my freelance career what I want and not just what people will pay me for. And it was really just a few weeks, like half a day to make the website, change my LinkedIn profile, and let me just wait a few weeks and do some outreach and see if this works. And if this works, I'll get to do what I want in the way I want. So it was a real guess, and it paid off. And there's a big tip is that if you're actually applying for a particular job, so this is not freelance, but applying for a job, this is something that a lot of people don't think of, is if you've got a web page, change your LinkedIn, change your portfolio and CV to match the words and the things. So this idea of switching and changing the words of what you want to do in that job or what you know that they're looking for, and really customize how you're presenting yourself. So how I design my ways of working as a freelancer, there's this little contact form on my website, which is one page with a contact form, is you can see where I've put here, and I've got this here. I just did this and saw how people were going to react. I wrote how I want to work. I don't want to work full time. On the left there, you can see I prefer to work in short things because I kind of get bored if you hire me for 3 months. I don't think I'll enjoy that. And on this other page on the right, you'll see that's something I send. It's like a doc I send to new clients to inform them of my ways of working before we start working together, so that I don't get stuck in a boring project or something that's not paying me well enough, or something that doesn't fit my values and my character strengths. So I'll let you read these highlights, and I will share the presentation for sure. And really quickly, the last thing is how I designed the actual pricing and rates. And I'm going to skim through it, but I feel like no one ever shares this kind of thing, and I feel like it's really interesting. So I'm just going to quickly run through it. I use my values to think about first, like, okay, how much money do I need or want to actually make, like per year, per month, whatever. How much time do I actually want to spend working for other people, other companies, other projects? And then with those two things, how much would I need to charge so that I could work the amount that I want to work and make the money that I want to make? It's very simple, but I'd never thought of it before going freelance and thinking, maybe I can design this. So the answer to the first question for me was, I basically just need to make the same as the salary in my last job. Maybe I should have aimed higher. Probably I should have. The second question, how much time do I want to spend working for other people? Like, well, would it be possible for me to actually work a quarter of full time, like 1-2 days a week? Would that even be possible? Or 1 week a month and then have rest? And have the rest of that time for other things like creative projects and actually doing my taxes and just resting and enjoying the space and time in my life, because I'd realized those were my values. And I came up with this formula. So if ideally I'd love to work a quarter of full time, a quarter of the week, quarter of a month, then I basically can take my old salary, divide it by 4 into quarters, and then get the daily rate by dividing it by 20, because it's generally something like 20 days in the month. And I've got this example here. I'm sorry I'm rushing through this so much, but I feel like, I don't know, so many people ask about pricing and freelance pricing, that this is another spin on it. This is not how much will people pay me. This is how much do I want? And let me just have a guess and see if people will pay that. I might as well try and get that and see how it works, see how it goes, and wait a few weeks or have that first conversation and say, here's my rate, and see if someone says, oh, okay. Or if they say, oh, no, that's like 3 times more than we can afford. Okay, I'll learn something. But this is a real example. It's not exactly like what I'm charging or earning, because that's maybe feels weird to share. But if you're earning 4,000 euros a month, it's monthly in Europe if people are joining from outside. We do monthly salaries here. So 4,000 euros a month would be, so my old monthly salary, wait, did I do this correctly? Yeah, my old monthly salary times 4 is 16. Yeah, is 16 grand. So because, why did I do it times 4? I can't remember, but there's definitely, take a screenshot and it should definitely work out. Now I'm getting flustered. But basically, it pops out this rate of 800 euros a day, which was like this is similar to what I was earning before. And then I get this daily rate, and then I thought maybe I should add a bit more onto this, because I know with freelancing there's all this stuff I don't even know about yet. There's more tax, there's more health insurance, all this stuff. And I came out with this figure. It wasn't exactly this, but something like this, 1,000 euros a day. And I just started telling people that was my rate. And then some people said no, and some people said yes. And I was like, okay, I'll do the ones that say yes. And I ended up, it's working. And now I've put my rates up even higher, actually. But it's really different to the normal way of thinking, which is, what will people pay me? What can I get? I'll just do that. Instead of this spin on it is designing how you want to do things, and having these simple methods of asking these questions and popping out these, okay, maybe I want this, maybe this is how I can make it work. And then that combined with being comfortable to experiment and test out quickly if it might work. So maybe we should leave it there, Hannah. This is
yeah. No, I mean, I didn't want to stop you because I knew what was coming up at the end of the talk.
But I'm sorry, we're over time.
No, it's all good. There's a lot of really great questions in the chat, and we'll just kind of track them, and maybe we can respond to them digitally. And I know that for those of you that are in AirMeet right now, we will be able to chat a little bit afterwards at the tables. Jeff will be staying. What she did show is she has a Miro board that that talks about the values. I'll put a link in. People can take a look at it and stuff like that. Some more actionable things that you can really do if you're looking to make these choices, thinking about what transition you want to make, what frustrates you in your own current position, what values do I have that I want to hold on to, and then how does that kind of, what can I do about it? And so. I mean, it was,
Sorry, I was going to just have on the screen as we go into the Q&A these last two big questions. Should I show that?
I think maybe let's just jump into the.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to ask one question, actually. I did just put the Miro board in the chat. There's
just talk so much.
No, great. There's a lot of questions, but I think one that was kind of on reference to what we were talking about just now was like, what was it? It was something along the lines, I'm finding it now, of like, what have you learned from freelancing that you didn't learn at startups, agencies, or large companies?
Yeah, okay. Should I set myself a 2-minute timer?
Yeah.
From the watch that Jeff gave me for my birthday, I've got a 1-minute timer on here. Okay. Definitely something I learned is that I had way more confidence than I realized. I was really scared to freelance because I was like, I'm not going to have a colleague to ask, like, how would you do this? Which actually just wasn't true, because I still had all the same friends and people that I could ask questions to. But I realized, I learned that when I put myself in a situation where I'm in a room with a client, with a customer, and they're asking me a question, I actually could come up with answers without questioning what would someone else do, what would my boss do, what does my boss want me to do. So that was definitely one thing. And another thing was organization, and it made me more strategic, because every single decision that I made was like, oh, if I do it this way, it's going to make my life more difficult, because I'm going to try and think of the way that's faster, easier, won't make me feel stressed out. I won't promise a client something that I don't really know how to do because I'll get stressed. I don't know if that's the angle where the question was going. But yeah, there's a lot of learning that were about individual kind of growth and work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really wanted to thank you for talking today with everyone about like just being so transparent and honest and open about your trajectory and path, because, you know, a lot of times we hear like these sugar-coated stories or these like, this is what you should do, but maybe that's not the path that you took. And so I think it's really nice to kind of have this openness about it. And also, this is your experience. It's not going to be the same for everyone, and they have different priorities or different choices that they need to make. And so it's just about figuring out what those kind of fit together. And so, I just really want to thank you again. yeah, we'll continue this conversation in the rooms and then online as well further on. So thanks so much.
So yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really embarrassed and sorry that I just took off all the time, but I'm definitely joining in the rooms. I forget exactly how they work, but I'm definitely going to stay around in the rooms and chat if people want to stay and join and ask me questions that you probably we didn't get time for.
Yeah, and if you're interested, I'm just going to share this really quickly too. If you're interested in more events like this or in other things, so the Guild is run through the Fountain Institute, and we have a newsletter. So we talk about these kind of subjects every week on Wednesdays. And we also have workshops. Sometimes there's free, sometimes there's paid. We do a course. We're offering more courses coming up. And so we'd love to hear what you're interested in. Check out the newsletter. This is where you can find out different events like this coming up. And if people, I mean, they saw your website on there, but is there any other way that people can find out about what you're doing or connect with you, Dee?
Oh, I'm really bad at this because because space and time and is so important in my life that I don't do a lot of, I'm kind of on Twitter, but I don't tweet really. But my site is deescarano.com and there's a contact form in there, which you saw. So you can reach out to me if there's actually something you want to work on together. And it's a pretty minimal website. But you could also follow me on Facebook where I just post of events that I'm running or things that I'm doing as well. Can't think of anything else. Am I missing? Can you think of something that I should say? Okay. Thanks so much everyone for joining. I've really enjoyed being here, as you could tell, because I couldn't stop talking. But I really loved it and talking about a subject that I don't get asked to talk about often. Thanks, Hannah.
Okay. Everyone have a great night. We'll join in the tables.
Okay. Bye, everyone.